Welcome everyone down to Ice Level. I'm your host, James Blennau, for today's mini episode with head coach of the United States National Development Team, Nick Fohr. Nick, how you doing today?
Doing great.
All right, let's get right into the interview. When did you start coaching Jimmy Hagens and Cole Eiserman?
So I had those guys for 2 years, the last two seasons. Yeah, we had 2 years together, 130 games roughly. We had a lot of fun.
Yeah, and in those 130 games, when did you realize those two players would be superstars?
Probably before the first game, actually. I mean, coming into our program, we do get a little bit of opportunity to see these kids beforehand and see what they can do a little bit. And so I had a frame of reference of them as players and had a pretty good idea that they were going to be, really good players and impactful players for us. And you know what, they came to work every day. They were great kids and worked really hard and did a lot of things. And because of that, they have success, right? So we knew right away. We really knew before we had them.
And then what about their game for you really defined their ability to be an enlarged presence on the ice?
Yeah, I think their game is such an offensive attacking style of hockey, and it really fit well with how we do things. They're different players and they have different assets, obviously. But for me, you know, it was great because I could put them together because their assets, what James is so good at is seeing the ice and his skating and his ability to make plays, and to have somebody to play with him like Cole that is just so good at scoring, like to be able to put those guys together and allow them to play together for a good chunk of those 130 games, it was a good thing to be able to do.
And in that time together, there was obviously a lot that the people did see, but there's a lot that the average hockey fan won't see. Could you describe one quality about each of them that, the average fan either won't see in the film or even on the ice?
Yeah. I think for me it's just them as people off the ice, and they're both really good with this and they're both engaging kids and if you bump into them at the rink and or if they're out doing something on the ice with little kids, like they're engaged. They have fun with them. So what you don't see when they got their jerseys on and they're playing hockey, that's the biggest thing for me is just how they operate, how they act, how they treat others, especially little kids, and they'll go down to their level and they'll play with them and they'll have fun with them and it's pretty cool to watch.
Yeah, and then moving on to, they're both headed to college this year, Eiserman to BU and Hagens to BC. How long do you think they're going to end up staying there? Because I've heard a lot about 1 year, but do you have a different opinion on that?
I don't know. I think it's always dictated a little bit by their NHL club and what their needs are and whether they feel that they're ready or not, right? So there's that piece to it. I think part of it is how they transition into college hockey as well, right? And how it all goes. They got a good taste of it last year. We played about 15 college hockey games last year and they did well. So I expect them to both go in and be pretty impactful as far as freshmen go. So really, there's a lot to be determined still on whether they'll be ready or not. Could I see them leaving after 1 year? Absolutely. Is it more likely two? Probably, and it could be three, and that's all fine. I think the important part when you start talking about leaving early is making sure you're ready when you leave. And whenever that is, that's what you're looking to do.
Yeah, and going from former line mates, excuse me, to
Yeah.
rival schools, what kind of prestige do you think it brings to the battle for Commonwealth Avenue, having these two great American hockey players pit against each other twice, possibly three times this year?
Yeah. Well, I think it's neat. Obviously, it's going to add to it. I think that the rivalry is the rivalry, right? They don't need to add a whole lot to that rivalry to make it exciting and make it fun for the fans and for the people that are involved. But to be able to go to the rink and watch, a kid that was, Cole was drafted 20th, I think, overall, and to be able to go watch him and what he can do at the same time and watch a guy that's potentially got a chance to be the first overall pick in the draft this coming year. That just adds to it, right? It adds to the excitement of something extra that you get to go watch and check out. So it'll be cool.
Yeah, and then let's move on to some predictions. Let's do something fun. First off, what are your predictions for the two guaranteed games that they have against each other this year between BC and BU?
It's great. I would predict knowing them. I would predict them both to be hard fought games, right? I think you'll see each one of those two kids in one of the two games put on a pretty good show. I look back to last year when we went to BU and played BU. Like Cole Eiserman was locked in. He was ready to go. He had 3 goals and 2 assists that night. Played really, really well. Potentially is the best game I saw him play in his 2 years. Frankly, it was really, really impressive what he did. And I think as he gets into those bigger moments like that in those big games against rivals, you'll see those things come out for him. So I would expect at least one of those nights to be able to go and be really entertained with what he does. And I think James might be a tad more consistent. You might see it a little bit more in both games, but I think you'll see a lot of playmaking out of him, and you'll see a kid that's going to be he, he's a locked in, hard nosed type of kid. Like you'll see him. Lots of people look at him as, he's going to be the first pick and he's this skill guy and all this stuff, but he doesn't shy away from any of the contact. He doesn't shy away from any of the confrontations. And I think that'll be something that you can see in those things because those usually escalate in those big games like that.
Yeah, and then one last prediction. Who do you think is going to finish higher in the standings this year, BC or BU?
That's a great question. Really, really hard for me to answer. I think if you would go off of history, knowing some of the players that are still there, I think BC's got a chance to probably finish ahead of them, but I think it's a lot closer than maybe people would give it credit for, to be honest with you.
All right, Nick, thanks so much for coming on. You have anything to say to the fans before you head off, anywhere we can find you, things like that?
Yeah, I'll just my it's quite an experience what we go through here, and to be able to work with the players that we have, and I get to start up with my new team tomorrow. We're actually down in Albuquerque, New Mexico right now, a place I've never thought I would come to for hockey, to play a couple games with our new 2008 birth year team. So I'm excited to see what they have, and hopefully we can have another one of these calls in a couple years with a couple more of these guys that are going to be going out there to play for BU and BC and maybe some other schools.
All right, awesome. Thanks so much, Coach.